All right, I'm here with filmmaker Christopher Everett. We're going to be talking a little bit about blaxploitation and martial arts films, some upcoming um, presentations and performances, and some of his own film work. Let's start out. I met you at a screening of Sister Street Fighter and TNT Jackson's. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of the martial arts genre and blaxploitation in the early to mid '70s?
Oh yeah, yeah. The martial arts genre and the black exploitation genre was very critical to the success of Hollywood. Back in the '70s. People don't realize this, man, that prior to that kung fu movie craze and the black exploitation era, Hollywood was kind of on the decline a little bit. It was pretty much almost bankrupt. And those Asian movies coming to these cinemas, especially in the inner cities, and then also the black exploitation movies as well, coming out the civil rights movement. African Americans really wanted to see films that were more about empowerment, upliftment, and them kind of fighting the system and taking down, the man, like they would call it. So those films, and also the Asian films, the kung fu films, really resonated with African Americans a lot as well. Seeing like white characters on screen doing the same type of things, fighting the system, fighting these oppressive regimes in their own countries, and doing these cool moves as well. And you saw a lot of that translate into our community and culture in the form of breakdancing, and then later on hip hop as well. So I always say that Black culture and martial arts always has been going back and forth for so long time, and just that combination. When you see it in the black exploitation era, you see a lot of the fighting in the fighting scenes. A lot of times you would see people knowing kung fu or performing some type of martial arts acts, whether they're fighting or whatever like that. So you would see that a lot in a lot of black exploitation movies back in that time. So black exploitation and kung fu. It's a guy, I forgot his name. He used to be a professor, but he had a term that he created called Black's Fu, and it's black exploitation and kung fu, and he talks about those movies like Melinda, TNT Jackson, Soul Brothers of Kung Fu, Black Belt Jones. It's a whole list of another subgenre of black exploitation, which is called Black's Fu as well. So, that's really the meat of it. This whole thing, this whole fusion of martial arts movies and the black exploitation movies as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've always thought of particularly the wuxia, the Chinese martial arts films as being kind of like musicals, but they had a rhythm
Right.
to their fight numbers that
Right.
that kind of meshed up really well with soul and funk music and
Right.
just um, so in addition to some of the cultural and political subtext of like
Right.
fighting against colonialism or against oppressive monarchies and whatnot, it had a rhythm that really fit
For
uh,
sure.
as
For
well.
sure. I know even with Five Fingers of Death, with that movie, Sigler, he created the theme, and it's a funk song. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? So that's the theme for the Five Fingers of Death. They had some funk music to it. So just like what you were saying, it fits the rhythm and style of everything.
Yeah, awesome. Well, all right. So speaking of martial arts, we'll come to your newest film, the documentary Grandmaster, the Victor Moore story,
Right.
um, which is going to be screening in Cary on February 24th.
Yep.
Uh, tell us a little bit about the film and what the plans for screening and distribution are going to be.
Well, Grandmaster, the Vic Moore story is actually my second film, my
Mhm.
second documentary. I did a documentary years ago called Wilmington on Fire. It's a
Yeah.
documentary about the 1898 Wilmington massacre in Wilmington, North Carolina. And so this project, you know, found out about Grandmaster Moore and all these other African American martial artists by this article. It was an article that came out some years ago called The Forgotten Fury: 12 Black Martial Artists That You Never Heard of. And so a lot of these guys, I would say about maybe half of these guys were already passed on. You had people like Moses Powell, um, Ronald Duncan, who was kind of considered one of the fathers of American Jiu-Jitsu. Moses Powell, his whole Sanukas Ryu Jiu-Jitsu style was very well known. He's trained people like Wesley Snipes, a whole bunch of people in the Nation of Islam. Was Louis Farrakhan's bodyguard for many years back then. He's long gone now, and also Fred Hamilton out of Harlem, New York. So a whole bunch of black martial arts that I never even knew about. And then one guy in particular stood out because I saw that he was in North Carolina right now. He's originally from Cincinnati, but he was living in North Carolina currently, and that was Grandmaster Victor Moore. And just seeing a lot of his accomplishments, being a pioneer of the sport in the 1960s when karate first became an official sport, and seeing he was one of the pioneers of it. Got his break in the USK by Robert Trias, who was kind of considered the father of American karate. He actually opened up one of the first karate schools in the United States in Phoenix, Arizona, like in the late 40s, 1940s. And Grandmaster Moore joined his organization in the 60s and ended up working up the ranks and becoming one of his chief instructors as well. And, so Grandmaster Moore has faced people like Chuck Norris, Bill Wallace, people that know about martial arts know these names, but if you're not familiar with martial arts in the golden era of karate, these were the guys. These were the guys: Joe Louis, Bill Superfoot Wallace, Chuck Norris was the man. People know Chuck Norris mostly for his movies. People don't realize that Chuck Norris was a few times champion, world champion, excellent martial artist, and a hell of a tournament fighter as well. And also Grandmaster Moore was one of those guys too, was one of the pioneer martial arts and karate fighters during this whole golden age of karate. And so reached out to him. We decided, I said, you know what, I want to do this as my next documentary because the type of films I like to do, just like with the Wilmington Massacre of 1898, I like to do films on topics that we rarely talk about. And that's what I try to do. Just like when I did Wilmington on Fire, no one was really talking about the 1898 massacre. Now everyone is. And
Yeah.
so, I think, we had a lot to do with that, with our grassroots initiatives, promotion, constantly doing screenings and impact campaigns. We really made this a topic of discussion now. There are like 3 other documentaries that are coming out soon about the 1898 massacre. And so just like now, no one's doing anything around African-American martial arts. And so I said, you know what, I want to do this. And like I said, a lot of these guys have passed on. So I said, you know what, I need to give him his flowers while he's still here. These guys are getting up there. A lot of them have a lot of health issues as well. So I said, let's go ahead and roll. And so we put it together, man. It's been a 5-year journey of filming and documenting him, plus 2 young guys that he's been working with for 5 years too. And so it's not all about his history. Yeah, we touch on his history and a lot of that throughout the film, but also we show how he's really been mentoring these 2 young up and coming martial artists as well, and really trying to pass that knowledge on to them, to them before he leaves this earth, and really showing what martial arts is truly all about. It makes you a better person all around. You become better at everything you do. It's a way of life, and that's really the message behind the whole film.
Great. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. So it's screening at the Cary Theater on February
Yes.
24th. If people aren't able to come to that, what are the next plans? Are we looking at a physical release or?
Yeah, this is like a rough cut screening.
Okay.
And the reason why I want to do a rough cut is because it is my second film, so I'm nervous because it's totally different than what I've done before, and I wanted to get some feedback as well from the audience. So we'll have like a little feedback form for people to fill out. And so what we'll do is we'll take those notes, we'll take the feedback, and then go back to the edit room and fine tune some things. If some people say, "Hey, we want to see a little bit more of this," I'm like, "All right, cool, we'll film a little bit more of that." If people say, "Hey, take a little bit out right here," we'll do that. And so these these rough cut screenings are very key for filmmakers like myself because it's a way to get a fresh set of eyes on it from multiple people, and to see what's working, what's not working, where did you laugh at, where did you cry at, what was boring to you. You want to know all those things, so when you go into the edit room and fine tune and really get it ready for release, it just gives you a better sense of what's going on. And so the goal is, after this screening, we're going to, like I said, go back to the edit room, tune up some things, and the goal is to hopefully premiere at one of the top festivals later this year. That's the goal, is to do a premiere. We also want to do a screening in Cincinnati as well, where he's from, where he got his start in martial arts. So we're working on trying to set up something there. And then also here in North Carolina as well, in Fayetteville, because that's where he moved to after leaving Cincinnati. And he had a couple of karate schools in the Fayetteville area. So we're going to do kind of like a two city premiere as well, you know, Cincinnati and then Fayetteville. And then, you know, we're doing festivals and we're going to go all over the country with this thing. You know, we're definitely going to go all over North Carolina with it as well. And also we're going to have other interactive components to this thing. So it's just not a film. We want to make it a whole experience. And so also what we've done over the past 5 years, we've also been capturing Grandmaster more through photography. So I have an excellent documentary photographer, Tori Solinsky, who's been documenting a lot of my projects and the process behind them. And so we've been documenting Grandmaster more through photography as well. And so we're actually in the process of creating an actual martial arts art exhibit, you know, highlighting Grandmaster Moore and his achievements as well. So it's going to have, you know, photography of today. We got archival material that'll be on display and memorabilia, um, um, personalized art pieces as well. That's really going to highlight him and just the African American presence in martial arts. So we'll have that type of component as well, set up at like galleries, cultural centers, and stuff like that, where we can mix and match it. You know, say like we're at a cultural center in Greensboro, for example. We have it on display for a full month. People can come in there, interact in the space. We probably like 1 week we'll have a weapons demonstration. Next week we'll have Grandmaster Moore be there to do a free class for whoever wants to attend. Next week we show the film and have a Q&A. The next week we'll have the artists come in there and talk about the art that they put together for it. So we're going to have those type of interactive components with this film as well once it's released.
Oh, fantastic. So this will be something people can follow.
Yeah.
Well, now speaking of this being kind of a large scale extravaganza, this coming Rough Cut screening is part of the Weekend of the Warrior in downtown Cary. So on Friday night, February 24th is the screening, and then on Saturday the 25th we've got Can I Kick It, a screening of the great film The Last Dragon.
Oh yeah.
With Shaolin Jazz performing live. Can you, that's just, and food trucks and vendors and everything. That's pretty exciting. So the Shaolin Jazz performances have been going all over the country. What can you tell us about this one that's upcoming?
Oh yeah, well, you know, first, you know, I've been working with Shaolin Jazz for a little over a year now. I met these guys on social media. I was like, man, who are these guys? You know, I saw the guy, the DJ, mixing and scratching and to like a old kung fu film. And you know, it's a guy, you know, they're doing the sword fights, and I hear a Wu-Tang track over it. I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. So I reached out, said, man, I really love what you guys are doing. And then they saw what I was doing as well with my screening series and the Grandmaster documentary. And we just connected. You know, we chopped it up over the phone, over Zoom. I said, man, I would love to partner with you guys on something. So we actually made it happen last October in Wilmington, where we did, I did my first Can I Kick It experience with them, collaborated with them, and we did Enter the Dragon, the Bruce Lee classic. And people loved it. We sold it out. People attended, people loved it. And even after the film, man, people say, I don't even want to watch the original no more. I want to watch this film with this music. And so people don't, you know, and the whole experience with Can I Kick It is really an engagement where Shaolin Jazz kind of combines and fuses hip hop and martial arts, meaning that they take a classic martial arts film or a classic action film and do an actual live music soundtrack to it, using elements of hip hop, soul, and funk. But you can still hear the dialogue, you can still hear all the fighting, so you still know what's going on. You know, so imagine watching Enter the Dragon or even Cleopatra Jones. They've even done that too, you know. And like say like a scene with Cleopatra Jones. I know it's one scene. I'll send it to you as well if you want to show it to your class. They actually have a couple of scenes that they have online of them scoring Cleopatra Jones. It's one cool scene of her riding in the car and they playing the LL Cool J song. I forgot, it's Around the Way Girl. You know, it just matches. You know what I'm saying? It just matches that scene. You see what I'm saying? So Imagine watching Cleopatra Jones and you hear an LL Cool J track, come on, in a certain scene. So, or a fighting scene happens and you hear Wu-Tang, Raekwon or Method Man or whatever playing. So it's a very interesting new way of watching a movie. And also it shows you, okay, man, I've never seen this movie before. And also, or if I've seen this movie, I've never seen it with this music attached to it. And so people are, bobbing their heads and nodding their heads and, really feeling it, man. And so that's what it's all about. And you see DJ Two Tone, the other half of Shaolin Jazz, on stage. You see the DJ turntable. You see him mixing and scratching and all that stuff and doing his thing on the turntables. And while you're watching the film as well, so it's a very interactive event. Also we add the element sometimes of a martial arts demonstration as well to it, where you have a local martial artist come through and do a demonstration. We also set it up for like a pre-show with the local DJ as well to kind of get the crowd hyped and ready for what they're about to experience. And also a cool thing is that we're going to have some food trucks at this thing. And one of the good food trucks that really merges this thing all together is a food truck called Go Yaki, and it's an Afro-Hibachi food truck. I've been working with Go Yaki for a couple of my other past screenings that I did in Durham. Actually, how I found out about them, I was just driving downtown Durham. I said, Afro-Japanese, what is that? I said, I'm gonna hit them up. I'm gonna call them. The number was on the truck. I said, I'm doing, a Kung Fu film series, and stuff like that. And I would love for you guys to be a part of this. It just fits. And they said, yeah, let's do it. And so this is like our third event together. So Go Yaki will be there. Great Afro Hibachi style food, the best wings ever too. They have some great egg rolls, great wings, and just great food in general. So they'll be there. Definitely get it. We're also going to have a vegan, gluten-free donut truck as well, and then also another truck with other sweets like cupcakes and cheesecake and all that good stuff as well. So it's going to be a great time for everyone. We'll also have a couple of merch tables as well. Shaolin Jazz will have some stuff for sale, including myself, and also Grandmaster Moore will be there too. So
Wow. Wow. It really brings full circle, right?
yeah,
The interaction of martial arts and blaxploitation in the 70s and their influence on the growth and development of hip hop and fashion and now
yep,
cuisine. Now
yeah,
cuisine comes
yeah.
into the mix.
Yeah, it's two trucks now, man, that I know that I've worked with. Go Yaki is one, and also Soulbachi is another one. And I've talked to them both, and they said martial arts played a huge part in them wanting to do this. Both owners grew up as martial arts fans. Loved Enter the Dragon, 36 Chambers of Shaolin, then also the blaxploitation era as well. Jim Kelly and all that. And so that era and that genre really, both of those genres actually had a huge influence on them starting these food truck endeavors.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, all right. I want to pivot here real quick. You mentioned Wilmington on Fire. And I want to take a moment to highlight that film, which was, what was that, 2015?
Yeah, 2015. Yep.
Um, and um, and you also mentioned that you're working on a follow-up.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how as you say, not a lot of people were researching or um, talking about the absolute atrocity
Right.
of Wilmington. How did you get involved and what what did you um, find? What did you learn? What did you feel like you accomplished in the making of that documentary?
Well, with that documentary, I started off years ago. My first documentary wasn't even about the 1898 massacre. The first ever doc that I tried to do was a documentary on my hometown in Laurinburg, North Carolina. It's a historical Black boarding and day school called the Laurinburg Institute. And that was actually my first project. It was called the Laurinburg Institute, established 1904. And that was my first project, my first ever project. And I actually have the tapes. I was looking at them last night, man, of my old interviews. And the thing is, a lot of those people have gone on and passed. My godfather, we interviewed him. He's gone now, and a few other people as well. But that school really was an important part of was an important part of Black history, not only in the town of Laurinburg, but throughout the country. People don't realize that Dizzy Gillespie went to school there.
Mm.
Charlie Scott, who became like the first Black scholarship athlete at UNC Chapel Hill, he went to school there. A whole bunch of people, man, over the years attended, including people in my own family, like my grandfather and my godparents and aunts and uncles. And I grew up right around the corner from this place. And so I said, you know what, I want to have this as my first film, but I didn't know what I was doing. So, I kind of totally messed it up. But now I'm looking back at it. I'm actually going to work on it as like an oral history project because I have all these tapes of interviews, and I'm really starting to love the different ways of how you can use audio to still tell some great stories. And so what I'm doing now is all the archival stuff I put together. I'm actually going to do a small exhibit of all the archival stuff we've collected over the years and audio recording, and do a small presentation, out of that. And so that was my first taste of doing a documentary. And it also led me to do Wilmington on Fire, because when I was interviewing the guy who owns the school now, he inherited from his parents, but his grandparents started the school in 1904. So it's been the same family for 3 generations. And he was saying that in 1904, no one really wanted to come to Laurinburg. No one wanted to come up here to start a school at all. So, well, what was going on in the early 1900s? Well, people didn't want to come to North Carolina. And whenever you would look it up, you'll see stuff and see stuff pop up about the 1898 massacre. So a lot of people don't know this, that Laurinburg played a major part in the 1898 massacre. So any pictures of red shirts, and if people have seen my documentary, we talk about the red shirts. They were very similar to the Ku Klux Klan, but they didn't wear hoods. They did a lot of their damage in racism in broad daylight, and they wore these red shirts as well. And they did a lot of voter intimidation and a whole bunch of stuff, and just terrorism towards African Americans back in those days. But the only pictures you can find of red shirts are from my hometown of Laurinburg, North Carolina. And they had a large population of red shirts in throughout that county. And you also find out that a lot of red shirts from Laurinburg actually came to Wilmington to participate in the 1898 massacre. And so how how you were saying earlier, full circle, 100 and some years later, African American kid from Laurinburg ends up making a documentary, on this whole thing, and really kind of, opening the door to all that happened with it. And so I said, I want to do this as the next project because it still ties into my hometown. And I think this is a very important story that needs to come out. And so it was me and a couple other guys. It was their first time making a documentary too. And we all just came together and just wanted to make history. We didn't think that it was going to do anything. We just wanted to make the film, do some screenings, maybe at a couple of libraries, and that's it. I had went back to school. I had started going because I had already graduated years before. But I said, this might not work out. I'm not really trying to do this as a career anyway. It's like a hobby. It was kind of like a hobby type film, something I just was a passion project. I didn't think it was going to turn into anything. And so I went back to Sand Hills Community College, and then lo and behold, man, we got the film done. We premiered it at Cucalores Film Festival, November 2015, to a packed house of 600 people and 400 people on the outside that couldn't get in. Wow. And it was on, and I ended up had to drop out of school. I told my professor, I said, look, this is the most money I've made in like in one screening that I made all year. And I got like 5 coming up. And so, I think this is an opportunity I need to check out. I don't advise anyone to just quit school like that. But my professor was like, you know what? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You need to do this. You can always come back to school. Go ahead and do it. And actually, after this year, I'm actually going to go back to community college and finally finish up some stuff that I started some years ago. And so that was the best advice that I took, was to go ahead and pursue this thing fully, and ended up having a good career out of it as well.
Great. And I'll put some links. This will be up on YouTube, so I'll put links to where you can see.
I'll send you the trailer. I'll send you the trailer for part 2 as well.
Okay, right. So part 2 is under production right now.
Yeah. We're already done with production. We're in post-production. We're editing right now. Yeah, we're editing.
All right. Yeah. Fantastic. So Speller Street Films is the name of your company. We'll have links to that as well. I want to be mindful of your time, so I'll ask you just one last question. Okay. When the first people who are going to see this video are students in the UNC Greensboro Cult Films class, and it's going to be right before a screening of Cleopatra Jones. And wanted to know if you had any thoughts or memories about that particular film.
Oh man, it's one of my favorites, one of my all-time favorites. I love those blaxploitation films back then, especially of the ones they're led by Black women. I say my top three favorite, Cleopatra Jones, Foxy Brown, and TNT Jackson. Those are that's I call it the Trinity. You know what I'm saying, of women Black exploitation films, because also people don't realize in this era that back then, man, you didn't have a lot of those type of films that had leading ladies like that, and especially in roles of empowerment. Them actually, fighting men and winning, as well, and kind of taking that strength back and taking that power back as well. And so, I love screening those type of films. And you came to the screening, TNT Jackson, and we were supposed to play the Q&A right after, but I sent you guys a link to it.
Yeah.
And so Miss Jean Bell, she's kind of like she's like my aunt now. She's always hitting me up. She's always touching base with me, seeing how I'm doing. And, she doesn't even realize the impact she's had on the culture over the years. And so she's still out here, man, still doing her thing. Still looks beautiful too. She's still in good shape. She's actually a Guinness World Record holder for being like the oldest person to skip rope. You know what I'm saying? So she does competitive rope skipping. And she actually just got her, I think, a fifth title not too long ago, actually. And so she's still doing it, man. She says she's going to keep going till she's like 80. So I think she'll be 80 this year. And
Wow.
so this might be her last year of doing it. But she actually got me to do it as well. So she got me to, that's the only reason she would do the interview with me, is if I would start jumping rope. And so I had to do it and send videos to her like every day. So, but it's, it's a good thing though. And also me and her have been talking about actually doing a documentary on her as well. So that might be in the works about, Miss Jean Bell, because she's been in more things than TNT Jackson. She was in The Mothers. She was in, she had a small role in Melinda. She was in a lot of joints, man, back in the day, Free the Hard Way, but, TNT Jackson and The Mothers was kind of like her two biggest roles. Right. And people can check out The Mothers as well. It's on Tubi also, where she's in that too. So we're actually thinking about doing a documentary on her. And so, she's still a little hesitant about it, but I think she's coming around, and hopefully, we might get started on that this summer.
Fantastic. Well, it is so great to talk to you about all these projects and more. As I said, we'll put links to everything on the YouTube channel, and all the best of luck as you continue to make films and get these projects out there. And yeah, I'm out of words. I just
thank you, man. I'm glad we met, man. And I definitely want to stay in contact with you. Love to collaborate with you, and also try to find maybe a time to do something at your school as well with the class.
Absolutely.
I'd love to try to do that. And also, I'm actually going to I'm finishing up my first script right now, because I do mostly docs. So now I'm trying to transition after Wilmington on Fire 2 and Grandmaster are done this year. Next year, I want to actually do my first narrative feature. And it's actually a martial arts project. It's a martial arts project. And so I'm finishing up the script now. I actually found the lead character. He's an excellent martial artist. He's been in a couple of martial arts shorts before. And I really I want this to be like a breakout role for him. And so, I grew up, man, like I said, loved the Black exploitation era, the Kung Fu movie era. And then, the era that I really love and I grew up on, man, was the era of like Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme. And, those were my guys, man. You know what I'm saying? Don the Dragon Wilson. So, that's my era. And so that's that spirit I'm trying to bring back with some of the work I'm going to be doing in the future.
Fantastic. Well, hey, if you need a big guy to get his ass kicked in the background.
All right, I got you. For sure, I got you.
All right. Thank you again.